Well, here on Pure 24/7 Radio, once again, it's time for movie reviews, and it's my privilege to welcome Andy Godfrey. Hello, Andy.
Hi, Nathan, and people who are watching this on video will see that I'm wearing my new Pure 247 radio T-shirt, and I
Yes,
was so
indeed.
pleased to receive it. It even says specialist. I'm not sure about that. Specialist in what? But
Well, a specialist in movies, of course.
well, I know a little bit about movies.
Well,
So,
you are our expert on this matter when it
okay.
comes to movies.
Well, I'm grateful, Nathan, and it's really good to be on. And hello to everybody listening.
Yes, hello indeed, and it's great to be back for movie reviews this week.
Sure.
We thought because we are coming up to Christmas now, it would be good to look at your top 10 Christmas movies. You've mentioned a few in recent times, and
Okay.
I know a few that you will mention, but it'd be good to hear your top 10
Okay.
Christmas movies, things you might recommend people watch over the Christmas period.
Okay. Shall we just do a couple of new releases first and then
Yes,
say
yeah, let's
that?
start with that.
Okay, no problem. There's a couple of films out in the cinema today. In fact, there's only two that I can see that are coming out today, new. I haven't seen either of them, but I'm really looking forward to one in particular. So one is called Craven the Hunter. It stars Russell Crowe. This is a spin-off from the Spider-Man universe. So this is a Marvel film. Craven is a villain in the Spider-Man universe, and that's all I know about it really. So we talk about being a specialist. But Craven the Hunter new out today. One of these action-packed blockbusters that Marvel churn out, and they churn out so many in the Spider-Man universe. I mean, we've had Spider-Man films just coming at us from all angles, literally, because he's been in the multiverse where there's loads of different universes and loads of different Spider-Men. But this, anyway, is about one of the leading villain in the Spider-Man universe, Craven the Hunter, who's a bit of a prehistoric sort of character, and say stars Russell Crowe. So that's one. The other one, which new out today, and I can't wait to see this, and I think you'll be particularly interested in this, is we've got a new Lord of the Rings film coming out. So this is great, isn't it? Because we all know the Peter Jackson films, Fellowship of the Ring, Two Towers, Return of the King, based on, of course, the famous books by J.R.R. Tolkien. Then they made three films from the book The Hobbit, which weren't quite so successful, partly because they stretched the story out. The Hobbit's quite a short book, and they stretched the story out. There was an animated film back in the 70s of Lord of the Rings, but it only went as far as the end of Fellowship of the Ring, only told the first part of the story. They never had the money and it never had the success to finish it. You can get it on DVD. I've got it. It's quite good. But now we've got a new animated Lord of the Rings film out, which has been produced by Peter Jackson. So this is in the same style as his films, except it's been animated and it's Japanese manga style animation. So if anybody knows what that means, but it kind of looks like samurai. The characters look a bit samurai, a bit Japanese, with that kind of style of fighting. Stars Brian Cox, Shauna O'Dearly, and Miranda Otto, who was in the Lord of the Rings live action films, and she reprises her character. Basically, this is set 200 years before Frodo's time, and it's a story of Helm's Deep. So if you remember the Two Towers, there's a great battle scene in Helm's Deep. It's a valley where there is a fortress that people go to hide from the bad guys, and our heroes have to defend it. This is the story of Helm's Deep, of how Helm's Deep was built. It's, as I say, it's a couple of hundred years before Frodo and Sam's time. It's a bloodshed story, but it's the story of the founder of Helm's Deep and battles that were raging in Middle Earth 200. It looks incredibly spectacular. So I haven't seen it, but I'm hoping to see it later today, and it will report on it next week. But it looks incredibly spectacular. So to have a new Lord of the Rings film at Christmas, kind of punch the air moment. Just two to watch at home before we get into Christmas. So widely available streaming now is Wonka. This is the prequel to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. This is the story of how Willy Wonka became Willy Wonka. This is the story of how he built the chocolate factory. He tries very unsuccessfully in this film to open a chocolate shop. Everything's going well, and then there's a disaster. I don't want to spoil it, but there's a bit of a disaster. It's very bright. It's very musical. There's some cracking songs in this. It was in cinemas last year. big, massive smash hit. Um, Worth seeing, really worth seeing. And if you like musicals, if you fancy something that you can sit down with a bowl of popcorn and watch with all the family. I mean, with young kids and granny, you can watch Wonka now streaming. I just wanted to mention one other film very briefly that some people may be aware of, but there is a new version of the Nativity Story on Netflix, and it's called Mary. Now, this is a 15 certificate, and the reason I've seen it, the reason it's a 15 certificate is that the scenes involving, when when the wise men arrived, Herod sent soldiers out to kill babies under 2 years old in Bethlehem. We know that story from the Bible. It's quite brutal. It's really quite brutally portrayed. Anthony Hopkins plays Herod in this, and it starts with the beheading of John the Baptist, and it's a real downbeat, realistic but heavy, quite violent telling of the nativity story.
Wow.
So it's really interesting. At the same time, we are told that the baby born to Mary is the Son of God. I was quite happy with it from a biblical point of view. It's just that, man alive, is it heavy? And it's really, so just be warned. If you see Netflix, if you're on Netflix and you see a film called Mary and you think, oh, lovely, the nativity story, this is not a nativity play that you're going to get in preschool. This is a heavy adult version of the story, which is a bit blood soaked, but that said, it's very, very good. So those are the four films that I wanted to mention: Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim, which is new out animated feature. We've got Kraken the Hunter from the Spider-Man universe. Those two in cinemas. Wonka to watch at home, and Mary to watch at home. But you're absolutely right, Nathan. An awful lot of people will be wanting to watch Christmas movies, won't they? Now, can I just ask you, what is your favourite? Do you have a favourite Christmas movie?
Oh, that's a tough one.
It
I
is.
know one tradition we have, we almost always watch It's a Wonderful Life at some point during Christmas,
Okay,
usually before on Christmas Eve.
we'll come to that.
Um, there's, I can think of a couple more I really like. Arthur Christmas is
Yeah, okay.
brilliant, I think. All the British actors and the way they go about it. I think that's a really, really fun
Excellent.
and enjoyable film.
Good.
That's definitely up there. I can think of one or two more perhaps, but I'm not sure. I can't actually think of that many.
Okay. It's a Wonderful Life, by the way. It's in cinemas at the moment.
Is it?
Yeah, so you could go and see it on the big screen if you
Yeah,
wanted
we
to.
got the
Yeah.
version which has actually been recolored.
See, I don't like that. I've got to be honest. If it wasn't broke, don't try and fix it.
Well, we do have the
But I mean,
option
it's
to
up to
watch
you.
it.
Everybody to their own taste. But
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of recolorizing because I think the film was made in black and white. It was meant to be seen in. I think I've seen both, and to me, in the scenes where he's running through the snow and the white snow falling on a black and white film, it loses something. But each to their own, and yeah, we'll come to Wonderful. It's a Wonderful Life. So that's
Yeah.
great. So, and of course, if we get listeners listening to this, they are going to be screaming at me because my list is going to be different from yours. I haven't got Arthur Christmas in my list. The listeners' list is going to be different. There are going to be films that I'm going to mention that people are going to go, "What? How can he have that in his list?" So my list is a bit different. Everybody's list is going to be different. That's the real joy of film criticism. That's the real joy of being a movie fan. I mean, I've been discussing Christmas movies with some people on a Facebook page I run that's devoted to movies, and we've all got our own favourites. So that's the joy of this. So my top 10, I'm going to recommend, and there's something for everybody, I hope. Okay. So first of all, I'm going to go to 2015, and I'm going to recommend a film called Krampus. So we all know that Father Christmas comes to good children. What happens with bad children? Well, they get a visit from Krampus, according to an ancient German legend. And Krampus is this massive horned goat that walks on two legs and brings chaos everywhere he goes. So naughty children get a visit from, like, if you like, the anti-Santa. Okay, so who is a horned goat, walks on two legs. This film's set in America. It's set on Christmas Eve. Two families come together for Christmas. They really don't want to be with each other. It's one of these typical things: families falling out at Christmas, not getting on with each other. And the little boy decides that he doesn't believe in the spirit of Christmas anymore. And the consequence of that is they get a visit from Krampus. So it's a comedy. It's a comedy. It's very funny, but it's also a horror film. It's a comedy drama horror film. It's got a fantastic ending. I'm not going to spoil it. The ending is, when I first saw it, and I saw it at the cinema, what? Really? The ending is just great. So I'm going to recommend, if you want a bit of mean-spiritedness, if you want a bit of horror at Christmas, if you want something to make you jump at Christmas, if you want a ghost story at Christmas, go for Krampus. The next one, and again, people are going to think I'm out of my mind, but I'm going to go for On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Now, this is 1969. Sean Connery had made 5 James Bond films, and he decided, I don't want to do any more James Bond. Who are we going to get to play James Bond? They approached various people, but in the end, they got a guy in called George Lazenby. Now, George Lazenby had never been in a film before, and here he is playing the most iconic character probably in the world. And he'd only ever done TV adverts, but he looked the part. He was handsome, he was big, he looked the part. And right at the beginning of the film, when they were introducing the new Bond, there's a scene where the girl runs away from him. And he looks at the camera and he says, and he talks to us and he says, this never happened to the other fella. The girl never ran away. It's really, really funny. I've met him. He's a lovely, lovely guy. And I actually have on my wall a signed photograph to me from this guy who played James Bond. It's the James Bond film where Bond got married. Now, why am I recommending it as a Christmas film? Well, most of the action takes place between Christmas and New Year's Eve in the snow in the Swiss Alps. Okay? Blofeld, Bond's archenemy, has got a Christmas tree. Okay? We see people opening presents on Christmas Eve. We see a Christmas event taking place in Switzerland. We see Bond proposing to the now love of his life, Tracy, in a stable on Christmas Eve. It's a barn, but stable, Christmas Eve, you kind of get the connection. There's a lovely song on the soundtrack called Do You Know How Christmas Trees Are Grown? And I've been, Bond's enemy, Blofeld, has built himself a base on top of a mountain. Now, today, that set is being turned into a restaurant, with a revolving restaurant. And you go up in the James Bond, I've been there, you can go up in the James Bond cable car. You have to go up in the James Bond cable car, and you can go up and walk around the set. They've really not changed it. There's a scene where he's having a meal with a whole load of people in this mountaintop hideaway. And when you go there today, the cutlery that they use in the restaurant is the same cutlery as they used in the Bond film. So they've tried to keep it authentic. There's 007 emblazoned on all the windows. It's a fantastic place. But it's a great Bond film. It's the Bond film. There'll be 25 Bond films. Of the Bond films, this is the one that follows the book the closest. Okay? And in fact, the director bought copies of the book for every member of the cast and crew and got them to carry it around in their pockets while they were filming, so that this would be an authentic and close to the book. But it's set at Christmas. The final bit of the action takes place on New Year's Eve. You've got to have a bit of James Bond at Christmas, I think. When I was growing up, Nathan, long time before you were born, we used to get a Bond film on ITV on Christmas Day, and that was the thing you watched, because we'd seen it in the cinema, but probably 3 or 4 years earlier, films did not come out on TV for 4 years. We had to wait 4 or 5 years to see a film that had been. These days, you wait a matter of weeks. For us growing up. So if we, so you got to have a bit of Bond at Christmas. On Her Majesty's Secret Service, set at Christmas. Even his enemy's got a Christmas tree. I think it's a Christmas film. The next one I'm going to go for, number 8, is White Christmas. So maybe one for the mums and dads, and granny and granddad. This is a lovely film. It's 1954. Bing Crosby, Rosemary Clooney, Danny Kaye. Danny Kaye and Bing Crosby are pursuing a couple of sisters who they've fallen in love with, and basically they're snowbound in an inn. And Bing Crosby gets to sing White Christmas. It's the most famous version of that song. It's soppy, it's sentimental, it's tear jerking, it's Christmas, it's White Christmas. You know, I really like it. And it's a perennial classic. So yeah, you've got to have a bit of Bing Crosby, just as much as you've got to have a bit of Bond. You've got to have a bit of Bond. Number 7. Now, by the way, in my top 10, I haven't got Arthur Christmas. I haven't got Elf. I haven't got Home Alone. So people are going to be screaming at me. I know they are, and really disagreeing, which is great. Number 7, I've gone for another little darker film, but I've gone for The Nightmare Before Christmas, Tim Burton's animated feature. So this is stop motion animation. And we open in Halloween Town. And Jack Skellington, the king of Halloween, is bored. He's fed up. He's just grown tired of Halloween being an all-round year thing that they do in Halloween Town. And he leaves Halloween Town. He goes for a walk, and suddenly he comes across Christmas Town. And there's this great scene where he's exploring Christmas Town. What is this? People are happy. People aren't scared. There's no monsters under the children's beds. You know, this isn't Halloween Town. This is Christmas Town. Everything's light and fluffy, and he gets a sort of joyous feeling in his heart, and he decides that he is going to take Christmas back to Halloween Town, and he's going to take over Christmas. And then he decides he wants to become Father Christmas. So he has some people kidnap Father Christmas, and it's a musical. It's great fun, but it has real heart and pathos. The crazy thing about this film, you're watching stop motion puppets. You're watching clay puppets, but you actually come to care for them. It's a character called Sally who lives a terrible life. You actually come to care for her, and you get worry about her, and you're rooting for her. And it is just a really super film. Obviously, it's a Halloween film, but it's also a really tremendous Christmas film. So, The Nightmare Before Christmas. And then again, we're going to get a bit soppy and a bit more sentimental. A film that's in cinemas at the moment, Love Actually. So I don't know if you've seen this. So the film opens. You know the song "Love Is All Around Me." I'm not going to sing it any more than that. We
Wait,
open
wait,
with
wait, wait.
Bill. Where? Thank you. I'd forgotten. I knew you know. We open, and you can play this. We open with Bill Nighy singing "Christmas Is All Around Me" everywhere I go, and Bill Nighy plays a washed-up pop star. And what Love Actually is, there are actually 6 stories going on that kind of collide. The characters sort of overlap, but there's basically 6 different stories going on. It's a really funny film. It's by Richard Curtis, who wrote Four Weddings and a Funeral and Yesterday and all those kind of films. Hugh Grant. Hugh Grant plays the British Prime Minister. He plays the best British Prime Minister we never had. I mean, he stands up at one scene to his American counterpart, and he's just terrific, Hugh Grant, in this. It is funny. It is, as I say, actually it's 8. I said 6. It's actually 8 very loosely related tales of people in the run-up to Christmas. It's called Love Actually. I love it. I just think it's a Christmas must. Okay. People are screaming Home Alone. People are screaming out. No. Number 5, I've gone for Gremlins. Gremlins, 1984. This is set on Christmas Eve. And a young lad called Billy has been given a Christmas present by his dad, a Mogwai. A Mogwai is this beautiful, cute little koala bear-like creature with great big bug eyes, you know? And there are 3 rules. Don't expose him to light, don't get him wet, and don't feed him after midnight, okay? All 3 things happen. And when this happens, out of this cute, little, beautiful, cuddly, gorgeous creature that you just want to hug, come gremlins, come monsters who take over the small town. And they take over the barn, they take over they all go to the cinema. There's one scene where they're all in the cinema going, watching Snow White, which is quite funny, going hi-ho. It is funny, it's crazy, it's chaotic, it's a bit of a roller coaster of a movie. It does have one of the most tear-jerking scenes I've ever seen in any Christmas movie. Billy's got a girlfriend who hates Christmas, and she tells him why. And it's a tear-jerking story of how her dad died at Christmas. He was dressed up as Santa Claus, and he got stuck coming down the chimney, believe it or not. Yeah, but it's actually quite it sounds silly, but it's tear-jerking. So I've gone for Gremlins because it's crazy, it's chaotic, it's fun, and the Gremlins even go carol singing at one point. Gremlins. And then we come to your movie, your family tradition. Number 4, I've gone for It's a Wonderful Life. So do you know the year? Because you watched it often enough.
Oh, do you know? I'm not sure I do. I'm guessing 1950s.
Very, very close. 1947. 1947. So you will know that Angel Clarence gets his wings in this classic, one of the most uplifting films ever made. It surely has to be on everyone's list. George Bailey, played by James Stewart, is on the verge of committing suicide on Christmas Eve because his life has fallen apart. He's lost all his money. He's gone bankrupt. And an angel is sent. There's a scene right at the beginning of the film. You'll know it so well, where two stars are talking, and one says, "Right, we've got to do something about this," and they send an angel down who has not yet earned his wings, but they send him down, and he takes George Bailey back in time and shows him what life would have been like if he'd never lived, because he's on the verge of committing suicide. It's one very moving scene, isn't there, where we find out that George Bailey had, in the proper timeline, had saved his brother's life at an ice rink, but then actually, when he goes back in time, because he's never been born, he's not there to save his brother's life. So I found it. I love it so wonderful. It's a bit long. It's over 2 hours, but it's currently showing in cinema, so there's an opportunity to see it in black and white. All right, in the original. But that's great, and I'm glad you love it. Take some tissues when you get your tissues ready. Number 3, I'm going for a film that we talked about last week as being available on streaming, The Holdovers, because I really think this is true. This is a brand new film, came out this year, about a grumpy teacher played by Paul Giamatti, who won the Oscar this year for his performance in this film. Boarding school in Boston. Some of the kids have to stay in the school over Christmas. Short straws are drawn. This grumpy teacher draws the short straw. He's got to stay in the school over Christmas and look after them. But they end up becoming friends. It is a wonderful, wonderful movie. It's called The Holdovers, and it is just a great, lovely film. So we get to number 2. Now, I had a real problem because actually I've got 2 number 1s. Okay. But I had to, in my book, I had to list them in order. So for number 2, I've gone for Die Hard. Now, our friend Steve Legg, who sadly passed away earlier this year, this was Steve's favourite film. And in fact, on the day that Steve passed away, I sat and watched this just as a kind of tribute to him. So Die Hard was Steve's favourite film. So a few years ago, Bruce Willis, who's the star of Die Hard, came out and said, Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. Yeah, right, Bruce. Come off it. Those who don't know, I'm sure everybody does, but basically, John McClane is a New York cop played by Bruce Willis. He has flown from New York to Los Angeles on Christmas Eve to try and reunite with his estranged wife and spend Christmas with her and the kids. She's at work in a big, massive skyscraper of a building on Christmas Eve. They're just about to close up for the day. It's an investment company. They're going into a Christmas party. Willis arrives as the Christmas party is in full swing. And his wife and he talk, and she's on the verge of going home to the kids for Christmas. Suddenly, the building is invaded by what we think are terrorists. They're not actually terrorists, they're thieves. In the words of their leader, they're exceptional thieves, but they're thieves. And they are there to steal bearer bombs that are in the vault of the building. This then becomes an action movie with Bruce Willis rescuing the hostages, making some really funny one-liners. There's one point where he's crawling through an air duct and he says, yeah, come out to Los Angeles for Christmas, little eggnog, little turkey, a few presents. I got to crawl through this tube and rescue people, and he gets all cut up and basically dispatches a load of the bad guys. Is it a Christmas movie or not? Yeah, absolutely. I think so. It's set on Christmas Eve. Alan Rickman, who plays the lead baddie, talks about miracles happening at Christmas. At one point, Bruce Willis dispatches a baddie and he writes on his jumper, now I have a machine gun, ho, ho, ho. I've actually got the Die Hard jumper. That's my only Christmas jumper. And Bruce Willis saves the day. The film ends with let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. It ends with one character saying, If this is their idea of Christmas, I got to be here for New Year. So, um, and finally, Mrs. McLean, Bruce Willis's wife, played by the beautiful Bonnie Belinda. Her name is Holly. I mean, you don't get more Christmassy than that. So I love Die Hard. Steve Legg loved Die Hard. I bought him a Die Hard Christmas mug, actually, for his last Christmas last year, and he was so grateful. So Die Hard at number 2. Now, number 1, you have to. We'll come on to something else briefly, if we got time. But number 1, you have to have the story of Ebenezer Scrooge at Christmas. You have to have A Christmas Carol. Anybody has played Ebenezer Scrooge. Albert Finney, Patrick Stewart, Kesley Grammer, Bill Murray. You name it, they've played Scrooge. So what is the best version? Well, I like Scrooged, starring Bill Murray, which is set in the modern day. I think that's a really good film. But it has to be, and a lot of people will be agreeing with this, it has to be the Muppets version. I absolutely love the Muppet Christmas Carol. I remember going to see it when it came out in 1992 and just falling in love with it. And it's a Christmas tradition. It is just one of the most wonderful, joyous films ever made. But the thing with the Muppet Christmas Carol, of all the films of Scrooge, and there are dozens, there are musical adaptations, serious horror adaptations, family adaptations, of all the films, this film has got more quotes from the book than any other version I can think of. There are lots of quotes from the book, and I read the book every year about this time of year. And you got Rizzo the Rat and the Great Gonzo narrating the story. Rizzo the Great Gonzo playing Charles Dickens. Very funny, hilarious in places, scary for young kids at the end. I mean, the ghost of Christmas Future in the Muppet Christmas Carol is actually scary. In fact, there's a scene where Rizzo and Gonzo are looking through the doors of a church and they say, "Oh, here comes the ghost of Christmas Future. We're not hanging around for this. You're on your own, folks." And then they come back at the end of the film. Scrooge is played by Michael Caine, who is brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant in this. My favourite moment in the film, I got 2 favourite moments. One is he's walking through the market and they're singing a song about how horrible Scrooge is. And this being the Muppets, the vegetables have got, the vegetables talk. And there's a great line which says, "Even the vegetables don't like him," which cracks me up every time. But there's another scene where they're in the office and Kermit is playing Bob Cratchit, and he's asking Mr. Scrooge for a bit more coal for the fire because everybody's freezing, and the rats who are doing the paperwork are all freezing, And Michael Caine as Scrooge says, "How would you, if you asked for any more coal for the fire, how would you like to be unemployed at Christmas?" And the next thing you see is Kermit and all the other workers in his office dressed up in Hawaiian hats and sunshades going, "Heat waves, this is my island in the sun," singing that song. It's very, very funny, but it's brilliant. You have to have Scrooge at Christmas. As far as I'm concerned, Christmas isn't Christmas without Ebenezer Scrooge. I love the version with Albert Finney, which is a musical that contains the song "Thank You Very Much." Thank you very much. I love the Jim Carrey animated version. I love Bill Murray playing Scrooge in a sort of future modern day setting version. He plays a TV executive who gets visited by the 3 ghosts because he's mean and horrible. I love all that. You got to have Scrooge. For me, it's the Muppet Christmas Carol. So there you go. That's my Christmas top 10. Nobody's listening is going to agree with it, but I'm going Krampus, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, White Christmas, The Nightmare Before Christmas, Love Actually, Gremlins, It's a Wonderful Life, A Christmas Carol, Die Hard, and The Muppets. And I'm sticking with it.
Awesome. Well, there's some great films on there, and I must say
Yeah.
some of those I definitely enjoy. I do like the Muppet Christmas Carol. I think
Yeah.
it's a really great performance or sort of rendition of Charles Dickens' Scrooge. It's fantastic.
There was a great tragedy. When the film came out, it had a song that is sung in the Christmas Past section called When Love Is Gone. And it was sung by Scrooge's girlfriend. And they took it out. I saw it in the cinema with that song in. And then for many, many years, even on the DVD and Blu-ray, they cut that song because they wanted to reduce the running time for kids. It's been restored, thankfully, on the latest versions. So that's really good. I just wanted to mention one other thing. some years ago, the BBC at Christmas commissioned a TV series, so not a film, but they commissioned a TV series called The Nativity. And they asked a guy to write it called Tony Jordan. Now, Tony Jordan was famously an atheist. And they said to him, would you write the script for this nativity story, Mary and Joseph? He researched the story. And in the course of researching the story, this famous atheist writer became a Christian. Because he came to the conclusion that nobody would make this nonsense up of a virgin giving birth to a child. He came to the conclusion it was a true story. And he became a Christian. And it's just fantastic story.
Wow.
So, he was researching this. And you can get it on DVD, the series. There's one great scene, which I think you don't often see, where Mary goes to see Joseph and she tells him that she's pregnant. And he gets so cross because he thinks she slept with another man, and he starts throwing furniture around and stuff. And I think that's quite realistic. There's also they say that Mary goes away from Nazareth for 6 months to visit her cousin Elizabeth, not only because Elizabeth's pregnant, but also to get out of town, because the other women were calling Mary a whore because she was pregnant outside of marriage. So it's a very good series. You can get it on DVD. I've got the DVD. It's called The Nativity. And when you're watching it, remember that the guy who wrote it, while he was researching it and writing it, actually became Christian. Isn't that fabulous?
That is indeed. Well, thank you so much, Andy. Thanks so much for bringing us your top 10 Christmas movies. Plenty there for everyone, like you say, whether you prefer sort of mild horror or you like some action movies, you like something a bit more sentimental, a bit more classic. There's loads in there. So, and of course, that is all featured in your book, Faith on Film, Confessions of a Christian Film Critic. You do list your top 10. And as you say...
except The Holdovers is not in that book because I hadn't seen The Holdovers when I was writing the book.
Of course, yeah.
Next edition.
Yes, a little update.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. But thank you for plugging the book. Yeah, make a great Christmas present for anybody who likes their movies. It's still available on Amazon. Thanks, Nathan, for that. I'm grateful.
Not at all. It's a great book. I've read it, and I can tell you it is a fantastic
You got
book.
your name in the back because you proofread it.
I have indeed, actually. I did proofread it, and I did get a signed version from you at the gathering.
You did.
Actually, speaking of the gathering, I recall there was a Christmas theme this year.
Yes.
And if I'm not mistaken, during the costume competition, the person who won actually dressed up like Bruce Willis in Die Hard, didn't he?
He did. If you remember, he put a TV on his head.
Yeah.
And he had a white vest on and jeans, like trousers like Bruce Willis in Die Hard. And then he had a Bruce Willis mask.
Yeah.
So it was like you were looking at a TV with Bruce Willis on it. It was absolutely brilliant, wasn't it? Yeah, I don't know what the theme's going to be this year, but it was absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Love the gathering. We're going to miss Mr. Legg.
Yeah.
Gathering.
Won't
very
be the
much.
same.
And they will miss it. Won't be the same. No.
Thank you so much, Andy. Great to hear from you again. I'll speak
and we'll speak next week, and we'll do the top 10 of the year.
Yeah, that sounds exciting.
Okay. God bless, my friend. Thank you, and God bless Pure.
The Pure newsletter comes out once a month and is designed to build up, entertain and encourage you. Sign up for our newsletter at pure247radio.org.